Paris, 1771. 2 decades before the revolution, and the steam engine makes its appearance. An engine made by Nicolas Joseph Guignol to the orders of the Ministry of War. It's a secret weapon and should be able to haul cannons at a speed of 10 leagues an hour. But it has no brakes. And the history of the steam engine is going to stop there for 60 years. Its story will be continued in England. But this time, it'll run on rails. And so I crossed the Channel. My first station is called Victoria, the terminus of trains coming from the continent. These buildings date from 1909. I don't linger because I'm in a hurry to reach the first station where steam was known in London, Euston Station, which is reached by underground railway. Here, electricity is now king. In what was once a temple to steam, in what is now only a construction yard. I've come to this place to invoke the memory of Richard Trevithick, who in 1804 was the first to set a steam locomotive in action. It was designed to work on the floor of a mine. This machine inspired others, such as Puffing Billy, constructed by William Hedley. From 1813 onwards, it was working in the collieries of the Newcastle area. It still only holds 50 tons of coal, but it opened the way to the upsurge of England's economy. And for Britain's men of industry, these wheels of steel, which were so difficult to stop, were certainly the wheels of... But it's thanks to Trevithick that Londoners were the first people in the world to receive the baptism of the railway for 1 shilling. The locomotive was called Catch Me Who Can. Nothing remains any longer of the fairground attraction which held sway on the location of the construction yard of the new station at Euston. The Temple Porch, which 30 years later George Stephenson, another railway prophet, raised at the entrance of the first London station, has also disappeared. Poor George Stephenson today contemplates the end of his work. A wind of change blew over England. And in the ancient temple to steam, I have to content myself with watching the departure of modern electric locomotives. But I know it's a place where memories are cherished. I also know that they keep here, as a memento, a locomotive constructed by Stephenson. It's called, quite simply, Locomotion. It weighs 6.5 tons. It's capable of 10 horsepower. Its speed is several miles an hour. It was made in 1825 and was put to work on the first commercial line in the world, the 25 miles between Darlington and Stockton. In order to find the place where it all began, I had to visit a gasworks. Here, on the 27th of September, 1825, 600 passengers took their places in the only carriage amid 34 coal wagons, which made up the first train to be used by travellers. I followed this ancient of the tracks as far as this cottage, where the first railway tickets in the world were once sold. Poor old track, now used only for goods traffic and padlocked so that the road traffic is not impeded. Today, they prefer to take the bus from Darlington to Stockton. Then I went to another corner of England, to Rainhill, to evoke the memory of the rocket. In 1829, at this small station between Liverpool and Manchester, the first railway competition was held. It was in order to select the type of engine which would equip the trains of the Liverpool-Manchester Railway. 10,000 spectators were present. First competitor, the Cyclopede. This was activated by horses trotting on a rolling track, officially eliminated. Second in the lists, the Saint-Péray. Nearly 5 tons, too heavy, consumes too much, eliminated. Third, the Perseverance. Less than 3 tons, too light, it gives up. Fourth, the Novelty. It's the prettiest and 28 miles an hour. But its pipe breaks. Finally, George Stephenson's rocket. 4 1/4 tons, 30 miles an hour. It wins. 1 year later, it will incur the first railway accident in the world, an accident against which travellers have been warned ever since. At a nearby station, the Duke of Wellington was talking with an MP for Liverpool when the rocket rushed along at full speed. William Huskisson was the first railway victim on the very day of the inauguration of the Liverpool-Manchester Railway. Liverpool will be my first stop. It was then at Crown Street Station the point of departure for line. Now it's a depot for scrap iron and coal. On this line, George Stephenson showed what he was capable of, inventing the first genuine modern railway. He dug this tunnel of 1 1/4 miles under Liverpool, the first railway tunnel. He opened up the Mount Olive Trench, also 1 1/4 miles long and 100 feet deep, the first trench for a railway. I had the feeling of visiting a Babylon, a railway Pompeii. These troglodyte caves were once a warehouse for materials. At the top of these stairs, there was a ticket office next to a Moorish arch, which no longer exists. On the 15th of September, 1830, thousands of English people watched the inauguration of the line. 8 locomotives got up steam, among them the already famous Rocket. From then onwards, the railway was going to be developed rapidly throughout Great Britain. New lines were opened up from Glasgow to Garnick, from Dublin to Kingston, from London to Manchester. The new faith in steam crossed the Channel. Until 1831 in France, the carriages of the Saint-Étienne-Lyon line were drawn by horses. Marc Séguin replaced them by the first locomotives with tubular boilers. In 1835, the Belgians opened the line from Brussels to Malines, soon extended to Antwerp. In the same year, the Germans inaugurated the Nuremberg-Fürth line with another locomotive constructed by Stevenson and driven by an engineer brought especially from England. In 1837, Austria watched the departure of the first train linking Vienna and Wagram. The same year, Russia inaugurated the Iron Road from St. Petersburg to Pavlovsk, and the Parisians, the line which goes to Saint-Germain. Caricaturists, particularly Daumier, love to make fun of rail. Third-class seating was bad. Conditions in the first class were not always ideal. In 1850, there are already 6 trains a day between Paris and Rouen, and the Iron Road links most of the principal cities of Europe. And when the cinematograph appears at the end of the century, the first cameras are placed in front of a train. It was in 1896, in America, that Edison filmed the Black Diamond Express. In France, after Lumière had made his first film in 1895 at the station of La Ciotat, Gaumont sent his cameramen to Le Touquet station. 1899 in England, Henley Station. The trains on Tay Bridge. (1900) in Switzerland. The funicular on Mount Pilatus. (1910) in Austria. The first spade work begins on the construction of the new station at Linz. (1911) in Germany, the opening of the Swabian Gmund line. The lovers of catastrophes were no longer satisfied by lithographs, and growing journalism didn't fail to record all the derailments in the world. These engines, painfully toiling along the tracks, have now become the monsters of steel whose paths one avoids crossing in America. They are joined in fierce competition for the blue riband of rail. In 1835, the rocket achieved 43 miles per hour. A century later, the intense rivalry between the different British rail companies would make the North Eastern Line, which linked London to Scotland, the line for record.
Around the other side, make sure it's all right for Brimscombe. You know very well if she starts slipping there, we want some sand.
Yes, I suppose you were going in for a record run today, Tom?
In 1932, the Cheltenham Flyer reached 77.5 miles per hour.
All right, you can go now.
In 1934, in Chicago, American Challengers pushed their engine up to 92.5 miles per hour. In order to go still more quickly, locomotives became aerodynamic, like those of the PLM in France. In 1937, the Coronation Scott advanced the record to 115 miles per hour. Finally, on the 3rd of June, 1938, a Mallard locomotive, similar to this one, achieved 127.5 miles per hour on the Scottish line. No steam locomotive has passed this speed since. But on the 28th of March, 1955, a French electric locomotive will smash this record. ...207 miles per hour, the final world record. The next day, another locomotive will equal it. Nowadays, on electrified lines, passenger-carrying trains reach 112.5 miles per hour in France and England, 112.5 miles per hour in Italy, and in Germany and Japan, 125. Still, I have a nostalgia for the steam engines. Today, I went to Wales, to Portmadoc, the terminus of the Festiniog Railway. In 1836, a railway was installed there to carry the slates from neighboring quarries to the sea. In 1880, the track was prosperous. In 1920, it was abandoned. But since 1954, amateurs have brought it to life again. Each summer, thousands of enthusiasts come here on pilgrimage, for everything here is memorable. The narrow track, very narrow, 2 feet, the first to be allowed to carry passenger trains. The carriages, the first English carriages equipped with bogies. Observation cars, the first of their kind. All the innovations used by this line spread to other railways. I'm reassured and content, because I know that here, the boilers will never go out. Not only for the pleasure of tourists, but as much from devotion, so that always the song of steam may make itself heard. Steam, which has launched our civilization on its rails and which has carried it along all the tracks of the world.